Thank you for staying with us. Well, the 2023 elections is definitely right before us, and of course the electorate is going to be listening to all kinds of things, all shades of opinion. That has started already, but it's going to really kick off in earnest later on in the course of this week. So what should the electorate be interested in? What should the electorate be concerned about? What is the electorate supposed to hear that will make the difference? How does the statement by Peter Drucker, that's finance management specialists, his statement that the most important thing in communication is hearing what is not being said? Let's explore that and a number of other issues this morning with Emeka Okonkwo, who is a policy analyst and as well as a certified estate surveyor and valuer. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
For you, what's the biggest issue as far as the elections of 2023 is concerned?
Okay, I think the elections are of importance to everybody, given where we are today. But I will try to approach the issue from the perspective of a professional, especially relating to what I do as a valuer. In the recent times, there have been so many collapses of buildings, right? And it's very significant that we utilize this time and this moment in time to reflect on what development really is. If we use the collapsed buildings as a very reflective point to what the economy reflects to us and what development reflects to us and what failed leadership reflects to us, we can be able to corroborate it, because development is a progression. It starts from the thoughts. And keep in mind that the concept of civilized living, as we know it today, became possible because man rose to the need for security. That's why one of the basic requirements of governance is security of lives and property, right? And you cannot develop except you coalesce, you come together to agree that you need your best to lead you. The choices we make are very, the consequences are real. For instance, if you're looking at utilizing, like I said, these failed structures that we see everywhere, children don't develop houses. Development emanates from the concept of the fact that you're already matured, so you can make your choices. And if you can make your choices, I think it was a German historian, T.S. Eliot, that asked a very poignant question. He said, where is the wisdom that we've lost in knowledge? And where is the knowledge that we've lost in information? Everybody knows in real terms what the right things to do and what the wrong things are. Consequentially, what is happening to us today is just failure of options, the choices that we make. And the funny thing is that a lot of people know what is right to choose, what is right to do.
When you say failure of options, is it that we don't have the options or we don't have enough information to guide us to make those salient decisions?
Exactly the point. That's what this historian was talking about. In his book, this classical book written by T.S. Eliot, he was talking about the conflicting nature of man, why he will come to a reality where he understands what the right thing to do and he chooses the wrong things to do. I think that is at the base of what we are evolving from, right? Development requires that we scale back and allow the best of us to go forward. In the Grecian history of evolutions and organizations of governance, what they found was that they couldn't develop until they were able to fence security around themselves, okay? That was the most poignant argument that led them to agree to submit their rights to another person to lead. When they came to that point, the only reason why they did it was because they selected the best to lead, the best to protect them. When you come around, if you are under attack and all that, that is not the time to start looking on sentiments. You're looking at who is the best to lead you forward, right? Now, development cannot occur except we're secured. If you look at Maslow's law, Abraham Maslow, the basic laws of human nature, right? Sustenance and physiological needs. Then the second is security of life and property. The moment it was able to be organized, you found out that development can go forward. The consequence of development is making the right choices to allow the people that are better than you in a field to lead. I'm a valuer. I'm not going to treat my son tomorrow if he's sick. I'll take him to a doctor. I'm not going to say that I'm grown. Oh, what am I going to do? No. It's realizing the fact that, in fact, the ability to make the right choices is a significant portion of a developed mind.
Leading to the question, what are the things to look out for when making the choices? There are many people who have said over and over again that the decision we have to make next year, February, is as crucial as the oxygen that we breathe itself. So what are those things that Nigerians should be looking out for in the rhetorics? I mean, you have talked about the fact that some people we need to know what the right thing to do is in order to, it's a myriad of issues, most certainly, but there has to be a start. So as the politicians campaign, dish out things they have done, things they haven't done, what are the things to look out for, in your opinion?
You see, there are a plethora of issues, and I think that everybody who lives in this country doesn't need to be told that we have a challenge. And the basic thing is that I can do so much, you can do so much, but the impact of governance is crucial, right? Government exists to solve complex problems. And the fundamental thing about governance, just like I think it was Henry Ford that said that no man ever builds a reputation for what he's going to do. It's always based on what you've done, right? We are where we are today, and Nigerians are very knowledgeable and exposed and reflective people, right? The things that we'll be looking at, beyond the sentiments of where I come from, where I worship, and all of those mundane issues, where we are supposed to be looking at the nation in a developmental state. The same way I still go back to the analogy of a home, a building that you want to build. The fundamental thing to understand here is that we are trying to build a country. For you to be able to build a country, you have to be able to look at what is sustainable. What would make it enduring? What would make it, meet the challenges of all the people that are going to live in it? If it was a home, if it was a society, how will it function for everybody?
Yeah.
And to be able to pick out on all these things, it is without doubt that one of the fundamental things you require in a leader is a thinking mind. Period. You need to tell me how we're going to go from A to B. If you're not able to calibrate it and support it with evidential of what you have done in the past, it becomes a hoax, becomes rhetoric, which politicians are good at. But then that's not even the point. You see, we need to understand how this whole thing is. When you look at people that are honored, there are three categories of people that philosophers have established in the world. There are people that are simply mundane. They are chasing for things of excitement, okay? They exist in the world. There are different the middle class group of people, where me and you belong to today, whose persuasion is service. The service you're providing here today is good for society and it pays your bills, just like the service I provide and all that. But in this whole huge element of society is the critical part. The critical part are the two people we call lords. The lords temporal, politicians who get the power, and the lords spiritual. These are people that have set themselves apart. If we were in the clergy or in worship centers, people that have taken it upon themselves to gain your trust and my trust because they are morally beyond me and you, right? Their moral perpendicularity is higher than the norm, okay? So they have gained your respect and mine in terms of moral things. The politicians have gained our trust. It is trust that puts them in power, okay? To get up, and that is the highest level of service.
You know, many people...
Have they?
Many people will question that.
Yeah, I agree. But
because
that's
even in governance today, not top politicians, governance, government today, that trust quotient, I don't know if you know.
It's not there.
I was trying to say that that's what it should be. So I'm getting somewhere. So to be a politician, to come out to want to serve, the currency that gets you there is the trust of the people. So my point is, to get to that point and start getting so banal and mundane as wrecking the trust and getting involved in money and all of those things, it defeats the entire purpose, because the height that you have come to is the highest place of service. Your name is etched in history forever. Okay? So then the third part is people that are leading thoughts. I mean, we've just had a pandemic. Some people developed the vaccine. Those are the three kinds of people. So when we are looking at somebody who wants to come out for public service, you are looking at the elements of trust, elements of durability in terms of building a consistent society. Go ahead.
So let me just pick up on a few things that you have said. Earlier you said, we should be looking at who's going to pick us from point A to point B.
Yep.
So in asking those questions of those who are positioning themselves for public office, how should we be asking, for instance, that you're getting the inflation figures down from 20 or 21% back to normal? How should we be asking questions of how to get the Human Development Index, to something that is stable, that gets everybody along in the development indices? How should we be asking about how to make food prices, affordable for everyone? And then are the politicians answering those questions as they begin to campaign? Are they answering those questions, or are they, dancing around the periphery?
My point is, if you want to come and serve, you would have done your basic homework, right? Problems will never end. Government comes and solves the bits that they can and they move on, okay? But what is required of every person who comes to power is that you must leave a legacy, right? Now, the Nigerian people are about to employ somebody to run the nation, right? What we'll be looking at today is who matches the crisis position we are in, okay? Now, recall that in the last minutes, I had mentioned to you that the fundamental thing in developing any nation is peace and security. Those are fundamental. Because if you do not have peace and security, if you have not been able to elicit the trust of the people to be able to go forward, a lot of what you are doing will be challenged or ineffective or not achieve all that they wanted to achieve, right? So what I'm looking for, and what I think is necessary for us to look for today, see who will unify the nation? Who will galvanize these incredible talents that exist in the nation? Who is going to elevate? You see,
you consider unity more important than those other development issues?
I consider unity fundamental. Unity is fundamental because a nation is actually a people that are looking in one direction. So if you were to look at the real pictorial of a nation, it is a picture from the back where everybody has a vision. They are looking, people are together. Then you got a leader leading them going forward, right? But if you have a divided house, how are we going to stand? Okay? This is a very plural country. We understand that culture, religion, all of that exists here. But certain things can unify us, right? Which is why we require values that are enduring. Me and you can disagree on so many things, but we cannot disagree on the fact that you require me to be truthful to you, I require you to be truthful to me. We can disagree on so many things, but we cannot disagree on the fact that you require me to act in good conscience, right? What is good for the person on the left is good for the person on the right. There are values that unify mankind. At private levels, we can bicker and disagree on all that, but there are fundamental things that we must pull together. And people need to understand that you cannot continue to tell the public what you're not ready to do. You have to be able to show the public consistency in what you're promising and your ability and intent, belief in being able to carry it through.
So have we been able to achieve that over the past 22 years?
I would like not to stand on the pure political basis. Like I told you, I'm
No,
just
no,
a
I
professor.
understand. Just a quick one, just so you understand my trajectory. We've taken this decision, the same decisions around promises and promises over the past 22, going to 23 or 24 years now, from politicians, from 1999, 2003, 2007, up until where we are now. So in terms of promises delivered, do you think we have chosen
the
well?
jury is out, Ayo.
I'm asking because, I mean, we're going to be listening to rhetoric again, just as you said.
The jury is out, which is why we need to scale back and rethink. You see, I think that the bigger challenge is actually what is resonating with the masses. That is why leadership is a sacred role. If you come to this point where you can gather a huge number of people and begin to mouth all of your beliefs, you have to sit back and consider what you're creating, what army of people, what belief system are you boiling in them, because all of them do not have access to the information you have, neither do they have the platform that you have.
But let's bring the jury in now. Sorry, Ayo. Let's bring the jury in. Ayo made a very critical point at the start of the program when he quoted Peter Drucker. But if we're to hear or process the noise that we're hearing from politicians, what is it critical about what's not being said that will form the basis of the electorate making their decisions? If we look at the noise coming from all the political parties, but particularly the three main ones now.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, everybody would project what works in their best interest. This is my personal view. I believe that, personally, we didn't start this journey of this Third Republic on an ideological basis. That is why we are lost in tribe and religion and all that. People are not hearing themselves, okay? What I would have loved to see was where people are canvassing issues and debating on approaches to solve our basic problems, okay? Not people who are in a silo, just reinvigorating supports that in themselves are even inimical to the people that are mounting it, just because they have limited information, and just like all of us are in the crowd. You come and say things and people just run and believe it without interrogating those views. My thing is this: I would have thought that at the level where we are now, that when people want to come and lead us, there will be people that sign up to some higher ideals. There are things that destroy society. There are things that build society. We have to all collectively agree that the things that we're going to pursue will be things that will build society.
The question then is, how do we begin that journey? But don't answer that one yet. Chimole wants to ask you a few questions. Go ahead, guy.
Well, I'm hoping that eventually maybe that answer will come in along the way. Mr. Korokwa, good morning and good to see you. Now, listening to some of what you highlighted, but in context of, if you look at how we've been voting over time, there are those who think that, well, how about considering what they say is a fact that our voting has not actually reflected the mindset of society, in the sense that some of them argue that the system has largely, over time, been manipulated. And as such, that's why so many who should have actually gone, to stand in the queue and vote, usually stay aloof. And so to that extent, they're not exactly sure if those principles will actually apply in terms of how we should be making the right decision, because those decisions, they say, the results we've seen over time has not reflected what we have. But some now argue, thinking, from what we've seen of the recent register, if you look through where you see the age distribution of 18 to 34 being leading the pack in that list, so they expect a lot more reflection of the true mindset of the populace if we go out and vote this time. Also in consideration of the system of voting, where INEC is talking about how that BVAS will really be difficult to manipulate. Now, assuming all of that were put in the mix, would you then say they may have a point?
Obviously, they do have a point. And for all that it matters, we must give credit to the government for signing this bill into law. I mean, we're journeying somewhere. And I think, again, that it's very important to note that recent events have helped galvanize the base to realize the need for governance. You see, sometimes because of the nature of where we are as a nation, we're still developing. A lot of people still run their lives like in the primordial times, where you have your own security in your house, you have a borehole, you have all that. A lot of people do not really understand the impact of governance and what development means, okay? But I think that our recent experience in security, in devaluation of the currency, in the management of our affairs, I mean, we realized that there was a pandemic and all that. It's actually made a lot of people to wake up to say, come. We would require to pay a lot much more attention on how our lives are governed, on how policies are made and policies that affect us and all that. And the youth, like Chamberlain rightly mentioned, are also leading in the vanguard because the world, the future belongs to them. It's a global world today. You live in Nigeria, you can work in China, you can work anywhere. But they require that all the things that will support them to compete in the global world are present. So they require a leader that understands the changing times. And it's a different thing allowing people to make decisions for you. It's a different thing entirely to get involved in that process, okay? One of the reasons why I'm also here today is to lend my voice to that, because all of us need to get up and take a stake in what is going on and ask the questions that we're required to ask. Government will only do what you demand. Government won't do what they want. What they want is in their interest. Everybody pursues a selfish interest, but the moment there is pressure and demand, people can come into a discussion of agreement. So how do we bind everybody's interest in being able to build a society that works for everybody? That's what we're hoping for, okay? If we have a society that works for everybody, we can progress, really. But the fundamental thing here is how do we develop our nation? How do we develop our nation? You're driving on the street today, there are so many cars. You look at some of them, there's only one person in it. A train service would have conveyed all these people at minimal cost to all of us. Everybody is sending their children outside the country today. If you can afford to do that, we could have built our schools here. People would have come in. All of this is coming together to develop. We cannot develop our country except we come together. And that's why we require thoughtful leaders, people who can think through these problems and provide solutions that can band all of us together towards that journey that we all hope that we'll get to one day. I hope I addressed your issues.
You know, as it is today, there are usually different considerations, I mean, when people go out there to vote, because you have different classes of people who are facing different scenarios and different circumstances. And what we've seen over time is no matter how much narrative or impressions or mindset that the electorate have before the election, on the election day, it's a different ballgame entirely, because some of the plans or impressions that many have usually go out of the window. Now, whichever way the pendulum swings at the end of the day for this presidential and general elections, would you say that, well, given the build-up, the registration of a lot of young people, the awareness that have been created over time, this particular time, would you ultimately say, because we don't know how it will pan out, so it's somewhat hypothetical, I agree, would you say that, well, whichever way it swings, we seem to have taken a step? Or is it that if it goes a particular way, who knows, because it won't go the way everybody wants, will that then cloud or becloud the kind of impressions we have of the elections at the end of the day, of the kind of steps we may or may not have taken?
Well, the hope is that the build-up gives us a character sketch of how the people are thinking, and that the way the people are thinking should reflect in what the votes will show. That's our hope. But then that hope can only be possible if it is policed by people of interest who pay attention to it. Because keep in mind that politics is fights. it depends on what side you're fighting for. I would rather choose to fight on the part of the people. People who fight on the part of the people are never sore losers, all right? Me and you can disagree on policy issues. The important thing is that we all mean to serve. But it becomes a different thing if I'm hoping to go there to serve myself. That's why we divide, okay? For as long as it's in the interest of the people. Keep in mind, though, that everybody votes for their sentiments, okay? I can come here and theorize and logicalize everything, but there are basic things that are called to me. A lot of people are single-issue voters, a lot of people are plural-issue voters, a lot of people have their own concerns and all that. But let what we are hearing from the politicians be the things that are building us up. I think that's the fundamental point. And it would be nice for all of us in our different sectors and areas where we can lend our voice to remind politicians that the greatest need we have today in our nation is to build up the nation, to enable us to come to a point where we can develop, right? While we are hoping that they will make their cases, and then we will interrogate their cases, and nobody should be intimidated. People should be free to make their choices, and let those choices count. So while we are saying all these things, we are also respectfully thanking the civil society because they've done an excellent amount of work at this period, and a lot much more other people, international community, to police the processes, because we need the policed, right? We can't just leave it in the hands of people that will not deliver what it is that we want. It's also understandable that everybody will want it to work their way, but let the will of the people count. I think that is, let's build a society where the electoral process provides us the integrity of the choices that it is that we have, so that...
If I could use your field as some sort of example, wherein, you know, we had different professionals in that regard. In fact, there's so many of them that you never will think that will face scenarios as buildings collapsing in our climb here because of the amount of expertise that sector is replete with. Yet we have that kind of scenario. And what we get to hear from some of them is, well, we do what we can. The authorities don't listen to us. And so, well, what else can we do? Whereas several others who are not in that field think, no, they can actually do a lot more, that if those professionals put their foot down and ensure, because it is professionals who watch some of those things go awry. So they think, in that regard, the middle class here, would it be a fair assessment if we say, look, the middle class is actually part of the problems, because they, over time, have not been participating as they ought to, because if they had lent their voice and put their money where their mouth is, walk the walk and not just talk the talk, we may not have been in this kind of scenario.
Now,
Well, pardon me. I understand that we need to go to break now, but we'll let you respond to that when we return in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. So, Mr. Koronko, go ahead and respond. I mean, are the professionals to blame here? Because many think, look, is your profession in that sector, like, is it a typology of the challenge we face in the country?
Without a doubt. You see, we must continue to reflect the built environment as a metaphor for society, because it's an evidence every day that you get up, you see a building. It should resonate in your mind that the reason why this building is standing today, serving the purpose that it is serving, is because the developer, the person who conceived it, made the right choices to choose the right people to be able to put it together. Let me just give you a small example. Only last week, a client of mine and a friend asked me to come and give him what is called a building survey, just one of the services my profession provides. A building survey for a house that he wanted to buy. So I got into this estate. It was an environment of about 12 homes. And I checked around the whole place. And I told him, if you must buy a place in this estate, buy this unit 3. So when he got back and told him that he wanted the unit 3, the owner said, no, that's where he wants to live. And I said, why? He said, that's the one. He said, no, that he did extra work, that's where he wanted to live. So that tells you, because even as a reflection, like I said, using our profession as a metaphor, a lot of all these building collapses, how many of them are owner-occupied? You can hear about the collapses when they go multi-levels. But at the single level or the just dual level, you hear about other defects. People die for electrocution, the place is being flooded every time because of compromised choices and the things that they use. And yes, to answer Chamberlain's question properly, it is a failure of integrity, which is why people who want people to work for them in governance, people who want to work for them in development, which is a trajectory. Development follows from a developed mind, looking for a developed society, and then developing the society.
Perhaps another question that raises, let's close with this, is do people even understand what their job descriptions are when they vie for office? Then does the person who wants to employ the people, that is the Nigerian voting, does the Nigerian know the job description of the president? It is assumed, but do we really know? For instance, a vote for the president of the federal, for a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a vote for at least 1,000 offices. He selects the ministers, the department heads, the agencies heads, and all of that. And that's just one of several other functions that he has to perform. The customs, immigration, and all those things, they are part of government. So do you think we have enough understanding of the job description of the president or the governor that we're recruiting into office?
Okay, I'll put it the other way so that I can address your question very well. This is where the fourth estate of the realm come into, right? I think that it is too much of a journey to demand from an average Nigerian to understand what the job is. But if you tell him the consequences of the person running the nation, the impact they can have in his life, if you begin to look at what the person represents, is it somebody that brings out the best in us? Is it somebody, I mean, I will always refer to Awolowo in the West, how he was able to inspire free education. A lot of people aspire to be better human beings in life. Are the leaders we have today promoting the best in us, or are they bringing out the worst in people? Because there's something about honor. Honor is nothing. The value of honor is who gives the honor. It is from where you derive it that makes all the difference. Who are the one? What is he promoting? What the messages that he's passing to the people? Who is he resonating with? And what kind of a society are we going to develop hearing those kind of narratives?
But we'll never know until we have tested them.
No, we know by analysis.
Okay.
That's why I said no man builds a reputation for what he's going to do. It's always based on what you have done.
I think we should make that a quotable quote by you. Emeka Okorokwo is a policy analyst and is in the building industry. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for being
Thank
a part of our conversation this morning.
All right.
Well, there is more where that came from on Channels Television this morning. After this break, please stay with us.